It's week 9, which means the fantasy football playoff push pretty much officially starts. Whether your team is a 5-win team or whether your team is 2 wins, we're here to help you out. Let's hit that intro. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the one and only RotoHackers podcast. My name is AJ Herschel, the kid, and I am joined by the absolute stud. Don't you ever forget it. It's Jared. And Judah Buddha is off on assignment today. He won't be with us, but we're still here holding down the fort. How you doing, Jared?
Fantastic. How about you?
I'm really excited because McCaffrey was activated today. So 4 of my 7 leagues have a new running back, and I'm very happy about it.
Well, I think we can all agree that was the big news from today in America was McCaffrey being activated,
Absolutely.
Nothing else. Yep.
Yep. Do you think he'll do well week 1 back?
I mean, it's Christian McCaffrey. You gotta just throw him out there. I mean, if he had a broken body part that he was playing on, I think you'd have to throw him out there regardless. I said before, I am curious to see what happens in terms of how this splits with Mike Davis. I think Mike Davis has, more than proven himself to play very well in that offense. Carolina is not contending realistically for anything. There is no reason that they need to run Christian McCaffrey into the ground for whatever, for the boost in performance that they get from him over Davis. So if I were them, I mean, I could see it being, I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 split, but I don't think it would tremendously shock me if it was, 65-35 or something like that. I know McCaffrey, I think, is very competitive and wants to be on the field for every snap and stuff like that. But, just the toll that it takes on running backs' bodies, I think they would be smart, and I think they will just be like, yeah, look, we gotta save you for the future too. We're still going to use Mike Davis,
Yep. I hope he gets his normal starting role back because I probably have way too many shares invested in him this year. But I'm excited. I got him in a couple leagues I needed him in, so we'll see. Drew Vano says, "What's good, fellas?" What's up, Drew? Good to have you with us. One other piece of big news this week, other than McCaffrey's back, Antonio Stinkin' Brown is going to be playing this week in one of the best games, and I cannot tell you how excited I am that we're not getting an NFC East game in primetime for the first time in like 3 weeks. So I'm very excited about that. How do you think Antonio's going to do? I mean, Godwin's even questionable. Arian said he's starting. Is Antonio a stardom this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think AB, I think someone asked us about this maybe 3 or 4 weeks before he was even supposed to be, cleared to play again or whatever. And I don't think any of us, unless I'm remembering it wrong, we're jumping on board the Antonio bandwagon thing. There hadn't been any real talk of anyone signing him. He had at least managed to, not do crazy things for a while. And in everything else that's gone on in America in 2020 with COVID and a presidential election and everything, it really does now start to feel like, oh man, yeah, Antonio Brown. Remember all that crazy stuff that he did back at the, start of the year or end of last year, whenever it was. So I think Antonio Brown benefits from a crazy news cycle where, we just have so much and we just forget about things quickly. So he's kind of, kept his nose clean. And, you look at the way that Tampa offense is operated. And, Mike Evans is just, he's just gone games where, 3-4 games where he's gotten 2 targets, and maybe got a touchdown and saved it a little bit. But, especially with Chris Godwin's health, I think there's an opportunity for AB to come in and be, maybe a top 5 receiver, we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting. And Drew Vando brings up the point. What's with the weather in Tampa? I think it's supposed to be rainy all weekend heading into thunderstorms midweek. So I wonder if that's going to affect the game. Maybe even Drew Brees more so, because Tampa's got such a good run defense that Brees is going to have to throw it a lot. And we know that he doesn't throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field this year.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Brees has bounced back after those first couple of games. He's been, since then, he's been, a pretty serviceable quarterback. He even, did pretty well against Chicago on the road. And that's pretty impressive, considering that he's been missing Michael Thomas for the entire season. Emmanuel Sanders, the replacement, or the guy who could have been a replacement more for Thomas more of the time, has missed some games himself. And so it's, I think it's been impressive what Brees has done. But yeah, like when it's on the road and it's in bad weather, if it's going to be, then that starts making Brees more of a shaky play. And I don't know. I mean, you're going to have people that may need to turn to him with the quarterbacks on a bye. Matthew Stafford is a guy that I'm trying to use. But he was, I guess, potentially exposed to COVID, is on the COVID list for the second time this year. I guess the first one turned out to be a false positive, or he was just exposed to someone or something. Now here he is again. So apparently, I guess he can play if he doesn't, if he keeps testing negative. I haven't seen an update on that, but I saw, he had been testing negative, and they said he could play if he hadn't. But then, does missing practice time, how much is that going to affect things? He's going to be without
Galladay either.
No Galladay, right? He's going to be without him. So it's a messy week for me in my lineups, because I've got so many guys injured, so many guys on a bye, so many guys who it's going to be iffy whether or not they play. Aaron Jones Thursday night was an iffy one, where I was like, how much is he going to get? I still put him in my lineup, and he got 10 points. He didn't, burn you or anything, but he didn't really, have what you would. I mean, an Aaron Jones game, you're going to hope that he gives you at least, 14 or 15. But so yeah, that's kind of where it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird week for a lot of injury players as well. McCaffrey's definitely the biggest one that comes back, but I mean, I'm even trying to scrap for wide receiver at this point, and with a whole bunch of Bengals on bye, Boyd's on bye, Higgins is on bye. That really, really hurts me in a lot of different places.
Yeah, I think I've got leagues where. I'm just trying to look back through some of mine, but yeah, I think I've got some where I'm like plugging in, Cole Beasley as a wide receiver 2 or something, it's just a tough, cause like you said, I've got a couple of teams where maybe I have Boyd and Higgins on there. Let's see. Yeah, here's this league. Okay, so the one that I'm thinking of, I don't have those guys in there, but I've got DJ Moore, who's thankfully looks like he's playing. We'll see what he does, but it's a league where I've got Calvin Ridley. He's questionable. I've got Jamison Crowder. He's questionable. He was a limited participant in Friday's practice. And then I've got a roster filled with running backs, because Austin Eckler and Kenyon Drake are out. So they're in my IR. Kareem Hunt and Darrell Henderson are on bye, so they're on my bench. And so I've got Gus Edwards, Wayne Gallman, and Jordan Wilkins in my lineup right now. So, it's just like the perfect storm of factors here of just like trying, like who can I plug in here, and so yeah, like you said, you inevitably get some weeks like this during the season.
Yeah, that's brutal. I know, especially Wednesday could have been a dagger for a lot of people. No Ayuk, no Debo, and none of the main 49ers running backs either. They all went out on Wednesday right before the game, to which whoever picked up Richie James this week is just a genius. I don't know who did, but the 1% of people who did, brilliant.
I doubt it was even 1%. I imagine it was like, I mean, I think like they don't have. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's above 1% now. He's 2% rostered. I wonder if maybe that's. I don't know. I almost wonder if maybe like that's from leagues where they don't have waivers and you can just pick them up after the fact as free agents, or I don't know. But yeah, that would I would have never really wanted to gamble on that. Green Bay had been pretty solid against the pass, and it's not even like he was going in, into a situation where, I mean, he was going into a situation where the starting quarterback's out and stuff like that. So yeah, kudos to the people who did.
Well, we got a bunch of comments over here, and by the way, Discord link is in the chat. You should absolutely go ahead and join that. Drew says he's in a rough spot, might lose again. Yeah, it's rough. Liam, what's up, dude? Afternoon, boys. And Drew, enjoying the New York weather. We got some New York boys in the chat. Really cool over there. Drew, would you start AB in bad weather, Jared? And Judah was talking on our Discord, and something that you talk about a lot. At this point, you may not have a choice.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's just, I mean, for me, there's no reason why I wouldn't start AB this week. I mean, I think even if things were pretty good, I mean, maybe I'd be reluctant to start him over if you just had stud receivers. I mean, if you've got like DeAndre and DK Metcalf and a stud running back or wide receiver to plug into your flex, then yeah, in that case you don't. You wait and see what he does. But outside of that, outside of that, I don't see any reason to start him. Bad weather, unless it's just like insane, like horizontal rain and stuff like that. But like you said, yeah, you may not have a choice with all the people on bye or injured. You may just have to go with it.
Yeah, Drew says it's between him and John Brown.
Yeah, that's an easy AB for me. And again, unless it's just like hurricane conditions there in Tampa or something. John Brown, he had a great start, two good games back to back, the first 2 weeks of the season, 70 yards and a touchdown, 82 yards and a touchdown, decent targets, 10 and 8. Since then, in the 6 weeks since then, he's gone over, he's had 4 goose eggs, including from 2 games that he was in. I think 2 were just games maybe where he didn't play or was a decoy or something. But there were 2 games where he got targets and just didn't get anything. The other 2 games, back at I guess last week, he had 2 targets, 1 catch for 21 yards. And then earlier he had a game where he had 4 catches for 42 yards. But I mean, he's done absolutely nothing. There's no justification for playing John Brown over Antonio Brown.
Yeah, agreed. Liam says, so he's got a good setup this week. Christian McCaffrey's back. I completely feel you on that one, but he's torn with his flex. AB or DJ Dallas, Hyde, and Chris Carson are both going to be out again this week. Travis Homer has been cleared to play. What do you think, Jared? Did DJ do enough last week against a really, really good San Francisco front 7 to earn himself a starting job, not only in Seattle, but in our fantasy slots this week?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the dilemma here. I agree. I think that's a hard choice because Carson and Hyde are out again. You look at Dallas's overall numbers and they weren't great. He was, he really benefited from 2 touchdowns, but he was up against a tough defense and still managed to produce, however you do it, still managed to produce over 20 points. So, you look at Buffalo this week. Buffalo has not been an intimidating run defense. They're about middle of the pack. They've given up the 14th most, so they're not just a complete pushover. But, guys have had some really good games against them. That does make it a little bit tougher. I'm not sure if I'd kind of be curious to see like who else is starting for you at receiver, if there might be, if AB might be a better receiver play and then plug in Dallas at flex or something like that. Because that is kind of a tough call to make. I mean, New Orleans has given up the 9th most to receivers. We saw from the one game last year that when AB showed up briefly in New England, he had a great game against Miami. I guess maybe the Bruce Arians factor decides it here. He did say it, when asked like how much Antonio Brown was going to play, it could be 10 plays, it could be 35.
He is the most cryptic coach in the history of the NFL.
He is, and not knowing the exactly how things are going to stand in terms of let's see. I was just looking to see where Chris Godwin is right now. Chris Godwin's questionable, so I think I would probably lean Dallas because I think there are just fewer variables there. You don't know how much AB is going to play. I would assume that he's probably going to play a lot, but again, it's Bruce Arians. You don't know for sure. I think you can count on Dallas to get the majority of them. It's tough. I like both those guys, but I would go with Dallas. I think maybe he's safer.
Yeah. Like I said, I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of risky plays in fantasy unless I need it. And Dallas, after 20 points, I think he's earned the role. There's no Carson. There's no Hyde. I don't think Homer's going to take away that much from him. And as much as I think Antonio could be great, I also worry about the fact that there's like 20 other people in Tampa that can score touchdowns, which makes it hard to start Godwin or Evans or anybody this week. And if Godwin comes back, that takes away from Antonio even more. Yeah, Brady could have a great connection. I don't know what they've done in practice. We haven't gotten that much news on it. I'd go DJ with the safer play. He also says he's got Keenan Allen and A.J. Brown are his other wide receivers. So he's pretty set there. Yeah,
you can't play AB over either one of them. I was thinking like if it was, a lesser player, but yeah, you kind of have to roll with them. Although, A.J. Brown's up against a tough Chicago defense, but still it's A.J. Brown. So
Drew Vano says he started Packers defense, got 12, and then got garbage timed, and that dropped him to 6. That's rough. Because we talked about, I think, on Monday, the Packers defense could be a good streaming defense.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it on that. I don't recall that at all. It's been a long week. And I didn't watch much of that game, but that's tough. Yeah, garbage time scores are usually they're hurtful. They're very hurtful unless it's your guy, and even if it's your guy, it's stressful because you're usually waiting for them to make up, you're like, please do something. So garbage time scores suck.
Yep. Liam Wilson also torn between Jonnu Smith or Eric Ebron this week. Thoughts? If we had 5 weeks ago, we would have said Jonnu, but he's done absolutely nothing over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and maybe you want to field this one because I know you said that last week, or I think I remember you saying that last week was a prove it week for you with Jonnu. He didn't, once again, I mean, 3 straight games of 3 straight games of either 1 catch or 2. He's been under 30 yards every time, which is really surprising. I thought he would lose some volume when the Titans got all those receivers healthy. But I didn't think it would be this kind of dramatic impact on it. So, I mean, for me, I think I would have to say, sorry, all of a sudden my throat just went dry. There we go. Okay. I think I would have to roll with Eric Ebron at this point as a little bit of a safer
Mhm.
play. He's not getting a ton of volume, but let me go back. I mean, I guess out of all the games this season, basically he's been at 40 plus yards.
Mhm.
He's typically getting, maybe 4 catches. He's not getting a lot of touchdowns, which
Yeah.
I would have thought his touchdowns might be a little bit higher, but
Yeah.
just right now it's really tough to trust Jonnu with much of anything
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, same. Now that you mention it, Liam, I'm checking one of my teams. I've still got Jonnu in my starting spot, and I've got
Ooh.
Ebron on the waiver wire. So now I might have to go and grab him because, yeah, Jonnu Smith, 3 straight weeks of 3 points or less is really, really annoying. And he's going up against a Chicago team that, I mean, they aren't great against tight ends. They let Jared Cook kind of manhandle him for the first half. But it's just the target share that's like killing me here. Like Ebron gets 4+ targets normally. Jonnu now on a good week gets 4 targets, and that in and of itself is super frustrating to me. The fact that AJ Brown and Corey Davis are back and they're 100% and they're healthy makes me think Tannehill's going to go to them more often, and Derrick Henry's going to run the ball all the time because he's Derrick Henry. I'd go Eric Ebron back-to-back double-digit weeks in PPR. I think I'd go with him over Jonnu Smith, even as inconsistent as he was early in the year. What's his name? Roethlisberger's looking more and more to him, especially as people lock down on guys like Claypool and Deontay. So I would go Ebron. I can't believe I'm actually saying that, but I would go Eric Ebron this week. Oh, man. He was the bane of my existence early in the season, though. But hey, I'll take him nowadays.
Right.
Drew Vano asked J.K. Dobbins or Le'Veon Bell, Mr. I don't do revenge games. What do you think, Jared?
This is another tough one because Le'Veon's got the much better matchup. He's going up against Carolina. Dobbins is going up against Indy. Indy's been, fourth best against the run. They've given up the 4th fewest or against fantasy running backs. Carolina, let's see. Carolina is still Carolina's actually 4th most. So yeah. Carolina's gotten a little bit better. I would actually probably be inclined to go Dobbins here. This is a tough one. This is like a coin flip for me, and you can make if you ask me to make a case for either one of these guys, I could. Bell so far, just in 2 games, we have a small sample size, but in 2 games so far, he only has 6 carries in each of those games. Granted, Denver is a good run defense. The Jets tend to be okay. Not at Carolina level. So he's getting some catches. He could have a big game. Dobbins, though, Mark Ingram's out, and so we got to see last week what the show looked like with Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, and it looked a lot better, actually. The Ravens looked like a much better offense just going with those 2 guys. Here they are again, without Ingram this week, and Dobbins got 15 touches last week, turned it into 113 yards against Pittsburgh. So the matchup, I think he, he showed that a matchup is not that scary. And the Ravens are a different kind of team that you have to defend when it comes to the run, because you've also got to defend Lamar. So even against good run defenses, I think it's sometimes hard to project how they're going to fare against the Ravens, because you're defending the run primarily, but you have to defend it in a different way than you do most teams. So I would actually go Dobbins, but if someone made a case for a Bell, I would completely understand.
Yeah, for me, I can't go Le'Veon this week. After 2 straight weeks of absolutely nothing, 6 carries, 2 catches max, I would definitely go Dobbins, especially that Ingram's down. Like, that's what it hinged on. If Ingram was playing, then it might be a coin flip for me. But I'd much rather go with the guy who just put up 100 yards on Pittsburgh on a team that runs it 80% of the time over Le'Veon, who's splitting carries with CEH, and Patrick Mahomes is still the main part of that offense. I would not go Le'Veon this week. I'd go Dobbins. I'd stick with the hot hand in this case. As tough, quote unquote, tough as the defense is, the Ravens have one of the best offensive lines and one of the best running games in football. He and Gus Edwards are still splitting time, which makes me a little bit worried, especially since Gus is getting the goal line carries, it looks like. But I think JK is the workhorse back, so I'd rather go with him over Le'Veon in this instance. Allied Rivals tuning in says RotoHackers, Cademan Bauer of Scrappy Giraffe is back. Jared's favorite fantasy team. How you doing, man?
I don't know if they're my favorite. Ice Rink Falcons and Scrappy Giraffe. I like them. I like them both. Yeah. So, and I'd never thought about it. And he's too young. You're both maybe too young to have really remember this or watch this. But Bauer, he's got the Jack Bauer of name of 24. I don't know if do you remember 24? Have you heard of 24, the series?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, maybe you ought to shorten it to Cade, like Cade Bauer. It's got some punch to it.
Yeah. All right. Liam Wilson. Yeah. Ebron's rest year looks great. Aiden Tobin, thanks for joining the show. Love the profile picture, by the way.
Yeah, I'm just leaning in to look at the screen to see what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, looks great. I got offered Ridley for Chase Edmonds. Should I accept? I don't know how bad Ridley's injury is, and for all I know, Chase Edmonds is going to be the rest of the season starter, but every Cardinals starting running back has sucked. So what do you think, Jared?
This is maybe a borderline little clip. Do it for me. I don't know. I'd have to I think we'd both have to agree on it. But for me, like, they're saying Kenyon Drake's injury is not as bad as they thought. Now I don't know exactly what that means. Is it still gonna, linger where he's out for another week or two? How's that going to be split up when he comes back? They've been pretty consistent and committed to him. We'll see what happens this week with Chase Edmonds if he blows up on Miami, which has been pretty for the season. They've been pretty forgiving against the run, but they also seem to be improving as a defense too. So he gets them. He gets Buffalo. Edmonds has a nice schedule, but I would have to say if you could get Ridley, it doesn't sound. It doesn't sound like Ridley is probably a long-term thing either. And the dude has, apart from one game, he got hurt against Carolina. So he had to come out of that game. So we didn't get a full representation from there.
Yep.
Other than that weird goose egg against Green Bay, Ridley is giving you 15 to 30 points a week. So, I would do that. If it was me, I would do that in a heartbeat, I think. What do you think?
Do it. Come on. Do it now.
Nice.
I think it does deserve that in this case. I think it does depend a little bit on how your running backs are and what your running back situation is. If you've got like Gordon and Chase Edmonds and Jordan Wilkins, then I might not do it just out of necessity because you need to have the running backs in your on your team. But Calvin Ridley, theoretically, if he comes back healthy, I take it. Edmonds, like you said, is going to be splitting time. I think he'll do really, really well this week because Drake's not there. But like you said, Jared, we don't know how long Drake is going to be out. Ridley has always been great when healthy this year. I would absolutely take that and get Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and unless you're in a private league where your commissioner can okay the deal today or in the morning or something, then it's going to take a day or two to process. Or if you're a public league, it's going to take 2 days to process. So it won't process till Tuesday or so of next week.
True.
So it's not even going to hurt you for this week. Like if Ridley's out and Chase Edmonds plays, or Willie will play, but you won't be losing that. So this week's irrelevant with it.
Yep. Well said. Liam, with our trade deadline coming up this next week, looking to shop on one of my running backs for an upgrade, who would you keep Aaron Jones or James Conner, pending that Christian McCaffrey is still the player that he used to be, which I think he is. And I'm not just saying that because I have him in most of my leagues.
If it were me, like I would happily take all the Aaron Jones or James Conner shares that I could get right now. Especially if you're in good shape in your league, because Aaron Jones, week 15 matchups, like if you're in good shape in your league and it looks like you're trending toward the playoffs, you can't count on that too early. But if you're trending towards the playoffs, I start thinking about that week 15 game, those week 15 games as soon as I can. Aaron Jones gets Carolina at home. He's probably going to run all over them. And James Conner, if James Conner is healthy, which is always a dice roll, but so far, so good. Then in week 15, James Conner gets the Bengals. So two great matchups for both of them. Aaron Jones' overall schedule is okay. James Conner's overall schedule is pretty good. So I'm not sure what upgrade you would be looking for, or if you're looking to upgrade at another position like receiver or something like that. But if I've got those guys, I'm not at this point looking to peddle them away.
Yeah, that's a really great trio, if I'm being honest, starting in flex. You're going to get more in return for Jones just because he's blown up for 40 points. We know what his ceiling is. He came in banged up on a snap count last week and still put up 10 to 12 points, depending on what kind of league you were in. Man, if I had to trade, I mean, you're not going to get as much for Connor because everyone's going to know about his injury history. So you're going to get more for Aaron Jones. I don't think I would trade him away unless you need someone at wide receiver. If you're really hurting and got like Keenan Allen and T.Y. Hilton you're starting or something like that. In that case, I might try to trade away Connor just because Aaron Jones is always going to be consistent and he doesn't really have nearly as many health concerns as James Conner does. I would keep CMC and Aaron Jones, but primarily I think I'd keep all three of them, if I'm being honest.
Yep.
Allied rivals. Do I start Noah Fant or Robert Tonyan? This is more of a next week question because Tonyan already played, but what do you, let's just say rest of season. What do you think, Jared?
Fant for me, Fant, I was hoping would be getting a little bit more yardage, than what he's got in the last couple of weeks or so. Really, I don't know, for a little while now. Those first couple of games, he started off pretty well, in terms of yardage and getting a touchdown, but he's getting targets, I mean, 10 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 9 targets. And so I'm hoping that those are going to translate into some more production. Tonyan, you just don't know what you're going to get week to week from him, and his floor is extremely low. He had 1 catch for 5 yards last week. Now, the week prior to that, Minnesota, he had 5 for 79. We saw when Devontae Adams was out, how he was capable of blowing up. I think if you're chasing points in a game, and you need someone that could, maybe blow up for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns or something like that, then I think Tonyan is the better play there. If you're just looking for a safer, more consistent play week to week, then I think it's Fant.
Yeah, I agree. Tonyan is really riding on the one game he had where there was no Devontae and no Allen Lazard. And so if you isolate that game, I think he's only had 1 game with over 10 points other than that. Fant has not been nearly as good as he had in the first 2 weeks, but look, Drew Lock's throwing to him a lot, and eventually that's going to translate into points. Tanyan's in an offense where at this point he's maybe the 3rd best option, where you've got Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams above him, and then with Tonyan they still swap him out with Jay Sternberger when it comes to the goal line anyway. So honestly, Tonyan is his ceiling is definitely high, but his floor is abysmal. It is 1. Fant, we know his floor is at least like 6-ish points. Week to week, I'd go with the safer play and Noah Fant unless he's questionable or banged up. Then I'd start to wonder whether to put in Tanyan. But especially in the last few weeks, especially last week against the San Francisco team that could do absolutely nothing to stop Aaron Rodgers in the pass game, the fact that Tanyan caught one pass and got 1 point is enough for me to start Fant over him. I can't risk having a guy who gets 1 point starting on my roster. It's similar to Jonnu Smith. They both had great games, but what have they done recently? Next to nothing. I would go Noah Fant here. Drew Vano, our man with all of the Browns players. What thoughts on Hollywood Brown, the player that's always going to explode, but never quite does? What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I was just a little bit reluctant. I didn't draft him. I don't think in any leagues. People dropped him, and so I've since picked him up in a couple of leagues, maybe. But you look at his overall numbers, and we think back to some of those games last year and the potential that he had. But you look at his overall numbers, and who would you really have? Him or Cole Beasley? Based on the season production, and it would be Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley has had he's had a much higher floor and basically the same ceiling, because Cole had a game of 16 points. So let's say Cole has had a high of 16.7 points, and 4 of his 8 games he's been in double figures, and then all but one of the others he's been at 8+ points.
That's solid.
That's solid. Hollywood, on the other hand, he's had 3 games in double figures. He's been, he had a 2.3. He's had a couple, a few others of like 6 or 7. Again, kind of almost similar to, I think maybe the Tanyan Fant question. I would say, if you're comparing Brown to someone like Cole Beasley or Corey Davis, maybe you've got more potential for upside games. Like, there could be a game where he hauls in 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. So if you're chasing points and you need to swing for the fences, maybe go Hollywood, but on a week to week basis, I would rather have someone, more consistent in there.
Yeah, same. Look, if Hollywood eventually, I remember that 3-week stretch where we got really excited about Hollywood because he had gotten 6, 8, 10, 6 targets, and we were excited. We thought, okay, maybe this is finally the time he comes back. Next game plummets back down to 2 targets and a 3-yard touchdown catch. I don't know what to do with this guy anymore. I feel like John Harbaugh is standing on a mountain yelling at all of us that we are a run-first team. And even Andrews is starting to get questionable on whether I'd start him more or not. So oh my goodness, I wouldn't start Hollywood for the near future, especially not recently, unless you have to. Like we said, injuries and bye weeks. If you've got Fulgham and Boyd this week, you may have to start Hollywood. But until he starts actually putting up more consistent points or more consistent targets, I think this is a Dobbins, Lamar, Gus Edwards, and when he's healthy, Mark Ingram type team. And if Hollywood would get the targets of a number 1 receiver, I'd be happy to start him every single week, but he just isn't. And so I wouldn't. I'd bench stash for me for now.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, like when the Cowboys were, at sort of, with Dak and doing well and stuff like that, or some of these other teams, like you can have potentially 3 serviceable receivers.
Yeah.
3 serviceable receivers in an offense where your third one may be better than someone else's 1 potentially.
True.
So
very true. Len Boy says, "Morning, guys. What's up, Len Boy? Hope you're doing well." Liam Wilson bringing back up that we've got he and Drew have all the Browns, AJ, Hollywood, John, you name it. They've got it.
What can Brown do for you?
That's right. Exactly. There you go. Allied rivals. Do I start Chase Claypool or a questionable Chris Godwin? This is a tough one. What do you think, Jared?
Well, I mean, Godwin's the Sunday night game, so you have to know something pretty confidently at that point. if you don't, I mean, if you don't know and you don't have another choice of the Monday night game or something like that, then I mean that settles it. You just got to go Claypool. All things being considered, and both of them being in there. I mean, with it being Dallas, like it's a good, like, even though Claypool, we don't know week to week what he's going to get, like it is a good matchup for him. So, I wouldn't feel bad about going with Claypool. It would be hard for me to ever bench Chris Godwin. A lot of weird circumstances this week, with AB coming in and not knowing then how that's going to potentially take away from Godwin's targets or whatever. I mean, at this point, I would have to say, lean Claypool, because you don't know that you don't know that Godwin's going to play. You don't know what the weather is going to be like. You don't know what the target share is then going to be if Antonio Brown's in there. And if Antonio Brown's in there and doing well, then they may say, well, Chris, your finger's still kind of messed up. We're going to give it another week. So I think Claypool, even with questionable target share week to week, with the matchup and with all the variables in Godwin's game, Claypool might actually be the safer, option.
Yeah, Claypool has kind of been like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where we don't know whether we're going to get 40 points or 5 points out of him. But I mean, he's playing Dallas. Like Jared said, this is a terrible, terrible, terrible secondary that Big Ben should be able to throw all over, no matter how many times he wants to force a throw into triple coverage to Juju Smith-Schuster. Godwin's going to be interesting, but there's a lot of mouths to feed. And until I start seeing a little bit of consistency, it's when who's getting targets, I'd lean Claypool. I'm in a league where I'm starting both of them right now, but I also have Antonio Brown on the bench just in case Godwin doesn't end up playing, or maybe switch him out if he's less than 100%. Claypool's definitely the safer play. He definitely has, I think, the worst floor, because he absolutely could get a 1.5 points. But also, I'd rather take him right now over Godwin, who may not even play. Len Boy coming in. He says, should I start AB? I also have Evans. He's thinking both, and he has Chase Claypool at flex. What do you think, Jared?
Man, this is the AB hour here.
Yeah.
I think I would be inclined to start AB over Evans even. I mean, I have Mike Evans in multiple leagues, and well, not a ton, but a couple, and you just don't know. He has not done well when Chris Godwin has been in there.
There you go.
So if AB's in there and also potentially Godwin, I don't know, and Brady's just throwing to Gronk more. That worries me for Evans. I would start AB and I'm sorry, that's Allied Rivals talking about going with Claypool on that other question. Sorry, I thought for a second that he had AB, that Limboy had AB, Evans, and Claypool. So
well, he does. He's got Claypool at flex.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was getting mixed up between the different comments there. I would. You can hedge your bet. If you think you're going to win, if it looks like you've got a comfortable lead from maybe the 1:00 games or something like that, then maybe you want to hedge your bet a little bit with Evans and AB, especially if Godwin doesn't play, because then if Godwin's in there, then that just complicates it even more. Maybe the targets are going to Godwin and Gronk. But if it's just, the two of them and you're looking good after those 1:00 games, then maybe you want to hedge your bet there a little bit and play the two of them, and as opposed to risking, getting 0.5 points from Claypool or something. But if you're behind, I might be more inclined to go AB Claypool, because we just haven't seen. We got a couple of big games from Evans, a couple of like 20-ish point games, and then we've gotten 4 games where he's had two catches or fewer. So.
Yeah, Mike Evans is starting to become the bane of my existence, if I'm being honest. And this, I've talked about before. I've got one team where I have Godwin, Evans, and Antonio Brown. So I'm absolutely loving having all 3 of them this week. Absolutely, totally makes things very easy to figure out. I might go AB here. Evans has never done well when Godwin's in there. And even if he's in there as a decoy, I think Antonio Brown's going to have a good game. The Saints secondary isn't great. Evans gets red zone targets, but so does Gronk. If you're in a tight situation, like Jared said, if you're chasing points, Evans could absolutely get you 3 catches on 3 targets for 3 yards and 3 touchdowns. So if you're chasing points, then yeah, you might want to go Mike Evans. This is one that you can wait until Sunday night to decide on. But if you've got a significant lead and they've got someone on Monday night, I think I'd just go AB, try to take the safer amount of points that we're looking at right now. Okay, let's see over here. Right. Don Schaefer, thank you for tuning in. Asks, do I start Evan Ingram, Hayden Hurst, or Jonnu Smith? I think I'm leaning Hurst. What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, Hurst was my first inclination for sure over Jonnu, and then I was going to look back to see if Evan Ingram did much of anything last week, because I knew at least prior to last week, well, actually he did have a better game last week. So last week he did have 10 targets, 5 catches, 61 yards. And actually the week prior to that, he had 9, 6, 46. I mean, I think you could make it looks like you could make a pretty solid argument for Ingram or Hurst. Yeah. Let's see, Hurst up against Denver this week. Denver's been pretty solid against tight ends. That was kind of a tough call for me between Ingram and Hurst. I think I would go Hurst. I think I would go Hurst. I got to take a call real quick.
I'll let go ahead
on the fort for just a second.
All right, sounds good. I think I would also go Hayden Hurst in this instance, and I have had my issues with Evan Ingram in the past, but at least he's getting consistent target share. This is still the Giants we're talking about, though. This is a team that likes to run it once they get closer to the end zone. Evan Ingram does weird jet sweeps that never work. I don't know why they still do them. I would go Hayden Hurst. I think he's got the better chance to score a touchdown. Ingram's going to get more targets. If it's PPR, he's probably going to get more catches, but I think Hurst has a better chance. Ryan's looking to him into the end zone more and more often now. He's getting more and more targets consistently. I would go Hayden Hurst. Similarly, Jonnu Smith has not done anything in the past few weeks, so I would go Hayden Hurst in this instance. Aiden Tobin, who do you think is the best buy low player? Allen Robinson, Dallas Goedert, Michael Thomas, Lamar Jackson, or Miles Sanders? So on the show, we've talked a lot about Miles Sanders, and Jared is definitely a big proponent of Miles Sanders, and he'll tell you that for sure when he gets back. But Miles Sanders has a very, very nice end of year schedule. A lot of middling rushing teams. And the only reason he'd been doing really rough to start is that he was playing rough defenses. Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Washington. I think he's a great buy low candidate. If you can get Michael Thomas buy low, do it. I don't know if you could get him, because a lot of people are still thinking, well, I mean, I spent a first round pick on him. That's a big investment I made. I need a lot. I don't know if you could buy low on him. Robinson isn't bad either. Lamar, you could definitely buy low on. I think if you need a quarterback, he has been rough, but I think he's got a lot of his tougher matchups by him. Dallas Goedert, I mean, he could be okay. I don't know how much Richard Rodgers is going to be playing into this situation as well. I'm not the biggest proponent of Eagles tight ends. I mean, they're great, but they also split time. They're boom or bust, especially. I think it also depends on what your tight end situation is, if you need to trade for him. Because, I mean, there's definitely worse you could do out there than having Dallas Goedert at tight end. But I think in this scenario, I think Miles Sanders is absolutely the best buy low candidate, in my opinion. Maybe followed by Lamar and Allen Robinson, then Goddard, and then Thomas. Because if you can get him, if you can buy low, get him. I just don't know how many owners would actually do that. Don Schaefer tuning in. I have DeAndre Hopkins, Adam Thielen, and Will Fuller left at wide receiver, Henry at running back, Murray at quarterback, Jonnu, Ingram, or Hurst to play. Yeah, Hayden Hurst. All right, there we go. Drew Vano, Russell Wilson, or Josh Allen? I mean, this is a nice problem to have. I'm not going to lie. I think I'd lean Russell Wilson. I'd go with the consistent points here. It's getting to the point where, and I know Josh Allen is playing Seattle, and that's the biggest thing. He's got such a great matchup this week, but his last great matchup was the Jets, and that did not go well at all. I think he definitely could wrap up, but Seattle got Carlos Dunlap this week, so maybe their pass rush is also improved. I'd go with Russell Wilson. I'd go with the consistent points. I'd go with what he's just been so good in terms of real life and fantasy. Allen is definitely boomer bust. He could get you 50 or you could get 15 out of him. Like I said, I'd go with a safer play. I'd go Russell. In some leagues, he's never been under 20 points. So I would absolutely go Russell Wilson this week. And we'll come back to a couple of your questions back here, everybody, too, when Jared gets back as well. Anthony Lavia, good to see you, man. Would you go Will Fuller or Allen Robinson this week? That's a tough one because Will Fuller has been really, really weird, and Jared's back, so that means that he gets to take this question first. Would you go Will Fuller or Allen Robinson this week, Jared?
Well, Will Fuller, I guess the first thing we can say is that Will Fuller didn't get traded. They talked about the possibility of, possibly him going to Green Bay, which would have been very interesting. But I guess maybe the Texans wanted actual compensation for him now that Bill O'Brien is no longer in charge. So that's on you, Green Bay. That's on you for not trading for him when Bill O'Brien was still there. Will Fuller has been shockingly, consistent. I still can't play him over Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson's been great. I mean, he had 2 down weeks prior to last week against New Orleans, but you look at who they were against. He was up against the Rams. Jalen Ramsey is a tough matchup. And then prior to that, Carolina's actually been, pretty solid against the pass. So, again, 2 good options. 2 good options there. If you could get them both in your lineup, I think that'd be great. But if I had to pick one, I would go with Allen Robinson.
Yeah, this is tough because you guys know I've had my problems with Will Fuller and his injury history for the last couple of years. But I don't know. Maybe he's got it together. He's had double-digit points in basically every game he's actually started in. Week 2 with the weird, he was on the sideline the entire game. That's been a weird one. I think I'd go Robinson partially because the Titans do not have a good pass rush. They do not get pressure on the quarterback. And we saw in the Saints game when Nick Foles has time to throw, he's actually able to hit Robinson and Mooney over the top. Granted, the Bears offensive line is now not only mediocre, but now his injuries, Bobby Massey's banged up. He may not even start. I think I'd go Allen Robinson just because he's consistent. He gets red zone targets. He's definitely the out there number 1. And Houston, I mean, it could be a Brandon Cooks week. They're going up against a very, very, very bad. I think Jacksonville is the team they're playing this week, if I'm not mistaken. So it could be a David Johnson week even. I'd go Robinson, but I'm with Jared. If you can get them both in your lineup, that's really nice.
And I'll go back to just a couple of those questions real quick and say, I think Allen Robinson's great buy low. Michael Thomas, if you can get him. Lamar, I think this may be what Lamar is for the season. I don't know that, I don't know that it's been, I mean, we're half the season in now, and it's just not the same as it was last year. I don't know that there's going to be a point where Lamar just breaks out and starts throwing down 30-point games again. I like both those guys. And then the question on Wilson or Josh Allen, I mean, they're playing each other, but Josh Allen, I don't know. He's fallen off after that good start. You got to go Russell Wilson, even though it's easier for Josh Allen going against the Seattle defense than it is for Russell Wilson going against the Buffalo defense. Russell Wilson's just vastly outplaying him. So I just thought I'd throw in a couple of quick comments on those since I missed those.
Yeah, there you go. Agreed. I think that's what Drew and I were going with too. So round of Wilson there. Luke Ojeda, I'm back. Haven't been here in a while. Good to see you, man. Drew Vano, I'm in a no tight end PPR league. Do you think it'd be worth picking up Rob Gronkowski for the flex? What do you think, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your other options are, but I think potentially so. I mean, 3 straight weeks for Gronk of double digits and 12 plus, even not just. I mean, he's not just squeaking over 10. He's got a touchdown each of the last 3 weeks. Tom Brady likes his tight ends. That's the guy that he has the biggest connection to. I mean, Gronk is by far. I mean, normally you wouldn't think of a tight end as a good flex play unless you've got Kelsey and Kittle or something like that. But rest of season, where's Gronk gonna end up? Kittle's down for the season. Mark Andrews is putting down too many 3-point games and not getting touchdowns. I think we're looking at the legitimate possibility of, at least rest of season, Gronk maybe coming in as like tight end 3 behind Kelsey and Waller, and I mean, he's even outscored Waller the last 3 weeks. So, so when you got a guy doing that, then yeah, I think you can easily justify. I mean, because what he's doing, we talk about like James White being a safe floor flex play or something like that when he's getting around 10 or 12. Gronk's beating that. So, yeah, I think you can definitely justify him as a flex.
I completely agree, especially since he is literally the red zone target for Tom Brady now. Touchdowns in back-to-back games. You can barely find that anywhere. So, yes, Gronk is a great flex play in my opinion. The only way is rugby. If you had to pick 2, Jamison Crowder, DJ Moore, or Christian Kirk. Oof. What do you think, Jared? This is a tough one.
Well, I mean, there's a question, as to whether or not Crowder's going to play. So that may decide it for you. Yeah, Christian Kirk, like a few weeks ago, this wouldn't have been a question. Christian Kirk hadn't done much. He's all of a sudden, come along with these big games against Dallas and Seattle. I would say you got to consider that they were against Dallas and Seattle, 2 of the worst possible pass defense. And we've seen from some other players who had great games to start off the season, the first couple games, and then faded. Like you gotta keep that in perspective. If Crowder plays, I would play him and more. But if you're chasing points, Miami is still, Miami's still a friendly option. It just seems like a little much to ask Christian Kirk, who's not getting a ton of catches and targets, to put up another 2 touchdowns for a third week in a row. So I would go with the other 2, but crazier things have happened.
Yeah. I think if this is a PPR league and Crowder's healthy, I'd go Crowder and Moore. Moore is definitely the lock out of these 3. But if this is standard, I might be inclined to go Kirk because I think he's got a better chance of catching a touchdown pass because the Jets don't score touchdowns, and many times they don't really score points either. So I would go, if it's PPR, Crowder, easy, because he's going to get 15 targets and 7 catches. Absolutely. He's going to be a monster there. But if this is a standard league, I might even if Crowder's healthy, I might be inclined to go Moore and Kirk and go with the hot hand. They're playing Miami, who's middling of the pack pass defense. So I think it depends on what kind of league you're in. But DJ Moore, and if it's PPR, Crowder, if not Kirk, that's my take on it. Kashif Mustafa. I hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I'm very sorry. This week in a PPR league, do you think I start Zeke, Antonio Gibson, Justin Jackson, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire? What? This is a tough one, Jared. I mean, Zeke's iffy, CEH is iffy, Justin's iffy. I can't believe I say this. I think Gibson is definitely the number 1 option here out of all of these.
Yeah, Gibson. Let's see. I was looking back to see what he did against the Giants. Giants are kind of middle of the pack against the run. Gibson, surprisingly, I think I plugged Gibson pretty well before that Giants game the first time, and then he didn't do too much. He got like 7.5 points. I mean, the crazy thing is, I think maybe Justin Jackson's possibly the safe play, which,
Yeah.
Again, it's always funny to see like where we are, but Vegas is not good against the run, 5th worst against the run.
Yeah.
Justin Jackson has been in double figures 2 of the 3 weeks. I mean, against Jacksonville, he was still solid, 8 points. I think he's actually probably the safe play. And then I think you got to start CEH. I think you got to start CEH, even not knowing the target. It is still Carolina. I think he's probably going to get a slight edge in carries. I mean, last week it was just split evenly. But I think, I would still trust him splitting with Le'Veon in that offense more than I would trust a banged up Zeke in the Cowboys offense against the Steelers right now.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Zeke is the one I bench here right off the bat, which is crazy to say. I'll go my boy out of Northwestern, Justin Jackson. I think he's completely taken away the starting role from Kelly. I mean, Kelly's there, but he's not very efficient with his carries most of the time. Jackson, if this is PPR, Jackson's also catching passes out of the backfield, so PPR he's doing well. CEH is CEH. He's also getting goal line carries, so I'd go with him. And then Gibson after that, probably. So I'll agree with you here. I'll go Jackson and CEH. The Washington football team is just not great on offense, and Zeke is, man, he is having a rough time. Aiden Tobin, once again, if you have to trade one of these players, who would it be? Evans, Gurley, David Montgomery, Adam Thielen, or Chase Edmonds? What do you think, Jared?
I mean, I think the first one that really jumps out to me there is Mike Evans.
Yep.
Because he's really only done stuff when Godwin's out. Godwin has to stop getting injured at some point, I would think. We're on like injury number 4 now. Like, he's got to get healthy at some point, I think. Plus AB's come in. The focus has gone more on Gronk. Evans is the one that just jumps out to me. A couple of those other guys I would be a little shaky about for the rest of the season too. Gurley's had a somewhat friendly schedule, and that starts to get a little bit tougher. David Montgomery's going to have a limited upside all season. Any of those guys I would be fine with. I wouldn't want to trade Thielen. Thielen does have a tough playoff matchup in week 15 there with the Bears, but the rest of the time he's going to give you good production. And then Edmonds has some upside, especially while Drake is out. So
yeah. I think I'm totally with you on that. Evans, you may not be able to get that much for him nowadays, especially with Godwin and Antonio, but I do think Evans is definitely the initial one that sticks out to me. I think Montgomery is the one here I definitely don't trade, actually. And he actually hasn't been terrible in recent weeks. He's been getting a consistent 9+ points almost every week. He's actually catching passes out of the backfield. So if this is PPR, half point PPR, I think he's a solid RB2 at this point, especially in leagues now. Chris Carson's going down. People who have Drake is going down. I mean, unless you got McCaffrey back. Zeke has been inconsistent. I think David Montgomery is a really, really solid play. Thielen is, I'm getting a little bit annoyed with him by how he can get 30 or 3 points every single week, but he's still Adam Thielen, still the number 1. Uncontested. Jefferson's good, but he's very, very boomer bust. I'd keep Thielen. Edmonds, you could trade off, especially if he has a good week this week, to a person who really, really needs running backs. If Carson's out again, if they've got someone on bye, Edmonds could be really good trade bait. He's probably the one I think you'd get the best return on investment for, because Evans, you're not going to get a lot for him. Gurley's doing decent, but Brian Hill's taking carries away every now and then, so that's a little bit iffy. I think Chase Edmonds you could probably get the most for. I wouldn't trade Montgomery and Thielen, and I would trade Evans and also Gurley if you can get a good return there. Drew Vano, do you think DJ Moore will bounce back? He is starting to become the bane of my existence some weeks. I start him and he gets 4. I bench him and he gets 30.
Yeah, I think this is just going to be what we get from DJ Moore. We had a stretch of 3 weeks prior to last week where we started to get vintage 2019 DJ Moore, where he was just uncanny in terms of how consistent he was. 3 straight weeks 5, 6, and 7 of 96 yards this year, which was like last year where you could just count on him for 100 yards. And then he's dipped back down to see, he had 2 catches for 55 last week at Atlanta. They just weren't even throwing to him. So it's weird. I think this is just what you're going to have to put up with. You're going to have to expect a lot of 7-point days and know that, sometimes you're going to get a, 19-point day or something.
Yeah, I think he'll be all right this week. I think he's just going to be an every week wide receiver 2 or 3, probably, just the way he's been looking. It's getting really frustrating, I'll tell you that much. And thinking Curtis Samuel isn't helping with his random touchdowns every other week, but I think he will bounce back. But just when he'll bounce back is going to be the question. I think that's going to be impossible to figure out. Drew Vano, would you start AB or Gronk in the flex? I'm inclined to go Gronk here because he's the red zone and goal line target. What do you think, Jared?
It's tough. I can see like Tom making a concerted effort to get AB involved, especially if Godwin's out. I think part of it hinges on Godwin. If Godwin's in, I would start Gronk. If Godwin's out, part of me just wants to like see what AB does in that first game, and maybe Brady he's living with him. Like AB is living in Tom Brady's house. That's how badly Tom Brady wants him on that team to throw to. And this is the second time he lived in his house in New England. So I think that says a lot about how badly, he wants in there and wants him to throw to. If it was me and I was just feeling like, I don't know, just like willing to take a gamble on it, it's like the meme of like feeling cute might delete later or whatever it is. It's like feeling cute might put AB in my flex over Gronk, might pull him out later. It would probably be something kind of like that because I just kind of want to see how he does. But if Godwin's in, I would go Gronk.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Don't really think I have anything else to add there. Aiden Tobin coming back. Would you take Derrick Henry over Kamara due to their playoff schedules? Derrick Henry has maybe the best schedule you could ever hope for, but with Jacksonville, Detroit, and then currently the worst fantasy defense against the run, the Green Bay Packers, who just decide to let everybody run, whether it's Kamara or Cook or anybody run, or Ronald Jones, let anybody run for 102 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Kamara gets a brutal schedule of Tampa, San Francisco, and Denver in weeks 9, 10, and 12 before finishing off with Kansas City and Minnesota. What do you think, Jared? Would you rather have Henry rest the season?
Yeah, it's a slight edge to Henry for me. I didn't draft as much of Derrick Henry as I should. I kind of started letting people talk me out of him, which was a mistake. Like if you go back to our early podcasts, like for me, he was, a guy who should have been the number 3 overall pick, even, arguably even over Zeke. Yeah. And, he's potentially going to end up being, 1 or 2 probably in fantasy points with, let's see where they are right now with him and Kamara. I mean, Kamara, if that's your, okay, so it's Kamara, Cook, and Henry at the top right now. So if, either one of those guys, I would never complain. Slight edge to Henry in terms of schedule. But either one of those guys, you're in very good shape.
Yeah, and this is a nice situation too, where I think both of the teams are going to be feeding him the entire year, because now that we're playing in a playoff situation where one team gets a bye, now getting a good matchup really, really matters. You can't coast when you're the second seed and 13-2 and can coast in your last game. You got to play every single game. Derrick Henry, I love the guy. He's got a great schedule. He explodes in great matches. And we've talked about every single year how Kamara seems to taper off in the last 6 weeks. Like, we've talked about that multiple times. And Latavius Murray is still going to be taking carries away from him every now and then. He could be taking goal line carries. Kamara's always going to get the targets out of the backfield. But Henry is always just going to get yards every single week. He gets 20 carries every single week. I would go Henry, but yeah, it's definitely close. Like, given the choice between the two of them, you can't really go wrong for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Another question from Aiden Tobin: is Allen Lazard a realistic fantasy option? He's been sitting on my IR for a while. He's in a weird situation where it seemed like he was going to have a breakout year, but then got injured, and we don't know what to do with him. What do you think, Jared? Do you think when he comes back, he'll be viable for fantasy?
Well, I mean, who's a realistic option for you kind of depends on your league. Like, if you're in a deep enough league, almost anyone is a realistic option for you. So 10-team leagues, is he going to be a guy that's going to be a huge difference maker? I would say probably not. I mean, he could be, but we got 3 games worth of sample size with him this year. One of those games was Devontae Adams out. Actually, 2 of those may have been Devontae Adams out.
Yeah.
And he blew up week 1 with Devontae. He was solid, 4 catches, 63 yards and a touchdown against the Vikings. We don't really have much of a sample size with him. He's going to have missed, about 6 weeks or so. But if you're in a deep enough league, yeah, I mean, he may be. I think he's probably going to fall in the category of someone like a Corey Davis or a Cole Beasley or maybe an AJ Green, something like that. He might actually be closer to an AJ Green in some ways, like where you get like, oh, he had a pretty solid week this week, and then he didn't do much of anything this week. So depending on your league, I think you could in a deeper league, 12-team league or something like that. I think he could be 10-team league. If you're having to turn to him, it's probably not the best sign.
Yeah, Green Bay is one of those locations where, to me, if you're not the number one option, I don't know if I'm starting you. If it's a game where Adams is out, I think Lazard is a great fantasy option. If Adams is playing, I think it becomes a coin flip with guys we talked about, like, John Brown or DJ, maybe even DJ Moore. That may be a little generous there. But yeah, like you said, we've gotten 3 weeks out of the guy. You can't judge a player off of 3 individual weeks. Like, we could have done that to Josh Kelly, and the way he looked after his first 3 weeks was great rest of season, and now he's sitting at 3rd string behind Justin Jackson. So I think he's a realistic fantasy option in certain situations, but I don't necessarily like him that much when Jones is healthy, and also when Devontae Adams is healthy, because when they're in, they are the go-to guys. Nobody else really gets that much of a share of the targets. And then after that, it varies between MVS randomly catches a touchdown, Sternberger randomly catches a touchdown. So I think I would, unless Adams is out, Lazard is very, very iffy, in my opinion.
I have a special guest here.
Hey, there he is. Everybody's favorite roto hacker.
Yeah, he was gonna come be a pest anyway, and he apparently wanted something. Maybe he just wanted to be on camera. I don't know. So I figured since we were about to wrap up anyway, I would let him make an appearance. He hasn't in a while.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see the RotoHackers mascot back.
Yeah, that's
on
right.
The channel.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Kylo, for taking up Judah Buddha's spot. Be sure to join us, everybody. We're always here Tuesday nights and Saturday morning/afternoon, depending on your time zone. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We had a great comment section. As usual, we got a lot of great people in here. As usual, always join our Discord as well. Be sure to absolutely hop on there. We're very, very quick on news and information. I know we've got a couple guys up there. Be sure to join that. Absolutely. We will see you guys next week, next Tuesday on the RotoHackers podcast. Be sure to join. Jared, you got anything before we head out?
I got nothing.
All right, then.
Good luck. Good luck tomorrow.
There you go. Good luck. Hope you win your fantasy games, and we will see you guys next time.